because both parties
I want to say something. That was PBM reform. We're all supportive of that too. We're going to get that through. Why did Bernie Sanders stop this one though? Because this was
so why don't you go back to Washington and make that part of the negotiation?
This was part of all of it.
Dan Crenshaw joined Abby Phillip's CNN show as part of a panel discussion centered on healthcare, which also included Ana Navarro. In this video, we'll take a look at several moments where Crenshaw debates with Ana Navarro, Abby Phillip, and others on the topic of healthcare. I'll be adding my own thoughts and opinions throughout, so let's jump right into it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abby Phillip in New York with a special edition of Newsnight. Joining the table tonight, Jennifer Welch and Brad Todd. They are here also with us. Congressman Dan Crenshaw, Ashley Allison, and Ana Navarro. Let's jump right into the reaction to what we heard tonight at CNN's town hall. The overriding message, Congressman, from AOC and Senator Sanders was that Republicans need to come to the negotiating table because health care is such an important issue.
Yeah, it's quite the message, quite the lesson in gaslighting. I mean, I'm impressed. You know, we got to take notes. If you ever want to be a professional gaslighter, take notes from these folks. I mean, she called it Mike Johnson's shutdown. I think she's forgetting she voted to shut the government down. She voted against a clean CR. There was no strings attached to that CR. In fact, a lot of things, speaking of healthcare, which they should like, extending the benefits to disproportionate share hospitals, that's low-income hospitals, extending telehealth as well. There was a lot of things they should like. They voted for very similar CRs multiple times. So making it sound like it's Mike Johnson's or Republican shutdown is such an enormous lie. I mean, it's gaslighting to the absurdity, level of extreme absurdity. So, I mean,
are you surprised that there has not been more? I mean, given what you're saying, I mean, the Republicans probably should be in a position to feel really confident in this moment, but there has not been a whole lot of backlash against Democrats. And in fact, polling suggests that Americans actually want Congress to address this healthcare subsidy issue.
Well,
are you surprised by that?
If you ask Americans if we should address a healthcare issue, I think most Americans would say, yes, address the issue, but there's a way to address issues. You don't just hold all of the government hostage in order to do so. And I can quote plenty of Democrats. I mean, Bernie Sanders himself, right, has said that. You don't hold the government hostage over a policy issue. We have like 20 examples of this. So how hypocritical can you be?
Look, there's a way. Trust me, the shoe is on the other foot in a massive way. Because Republicans used to be on the other side of the
Her very first speech to Congress when she was elected, she said it's not normal to shut down government when we don't get what you want. That's her very first speech. That's exactly what Democrats have done. There's a clean continuing resolution passed by the House against AOC's wishes. That's what they've always said is supposed to happen when we reach this point. And now they're trying to bring in an entirely different issue, which can be negotiated after. And by the way, the health care premiums she's talking about are expiring, that Bernie Sanders and she talked about tonight. Democrats made them expire.
Yes.
Democrats voted to make them expire when they controlled everything. This is their mess. They made it. And they're shutting the government down to demand someone else fix it.
The whole point of a temporary CR is to negotiate during it.
That, okay, maybe Democrats should negotiate. Should Republicans? Because I don't feel like they are.
Democrats have always said we should not hold the government hostage to those negotiations.
But you all are in power.
But
you don't have enough votes to pass it. So you have to.
We have enough votes to pass it. We can't stop your filibuster right now because you're shutting.
So you don't have enough votes.
No, because you're using the filibuster to shut down government.
Well, you don't have enough votes. You don't have 60. So that's a simple filibuster. Whatever reason why you can't pass it, filibuster or not, you don't have 60 votes.
So how about we open the government then talk?
But you have to negotiate. And so I hear you.
So hold the government hostage?
But can I just say back to you?
Yeah.
You're holding the government hostage because Republicans won't. People are both stuck in the sand. And at the end of the day, let me finish my statement. At the end of the day, when the Republicans are in power, fact, you have to negotiate because you don't have 60 votes, fact. And Americans want their health care and they don't want these subsidies to expire, fact. So let's be adults and maybe both negotiate. But right now, you all are saying Democrats are being hostage takers when reality, so are the Republicans. You're both acting the same way.
I think the person,
Only Republicans have voted to keep the government
Let me get in on this. I think the guy who spoke last, who asked the last question, the guy that was channeling Johnny Cash in the audience, I think he articulated what you just said, and I think what most Americans want. I think when Americans hear Republicans blaming Democrats, Democrats blaming Republicans, it's like that Charlie Brown teacher, wah, 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 wah. Because the bottom line is we're into day, 15 of a government shutdown with no end in sight. There are government workers in Washington, D.C. having to make lines to go eat for free at Jose Andres' restaurants because they can't pay the bills and they can't afford groceries. That is shameful in this country. And what we got to call for is a damn compromise, and for you all to actually get back to work and sit down with each other and hammer something down. My God, if Hamas and Israel could sit down and come up with a compromise,
you both have gotten very good lessons in gas.
I find it amusing when MAGA politicians like Dan Crenshaw accuse others of gaslighting, considering how skilled they themselves are at doing it. Ana Navarro makes a strong point about government workers who are struggling, people who can't pay their bills or even afford groceries. The truth is, MAGA Republicans simply don't care about that. Sure, maybe not every Democrat genuinely cares either, especially those in Congress, but at least they make an effort to show concern for ordinary Americans. Republicans, on the other hand, don't even pretend anymore. Their loyalty lies entirely with billionaires, CEOs, and corporations. That's why it's almost laughable when Dan Crenshaw and Brad Todd appear on Abby Phillip's show, suggesting that Democrats should just reopen the government so they can negotiate. What's really happening is that Republicans are counting on Democrats to give in because they know Democrats don't want the suffering of federal workers and everyday people to drag on. MAGA Republicans despise government workers. They want to get rid of them, so they don't care if those workers are struggling or if ACA subsidies disappear. In fact, they'd prefer it, since they never supported those subsidies in the first place. Their tactic is simple. Keep saying, let's reopen the government so we can negotiate, but once it's reopened, they'll refuse to negotiate at all. They accuse others of hostage-taking, but the truth is, the Republican Party has become like a group of bank robbers who, instead of releasing hostages, blow up the entire bank without caring about the people inside. That's how little they care about Americans losing health care. And now Dan Crenshaw wants to talk about all the supposed things Republicans have done for health care. What a joke. If we're talking about gaslighting, Dan Crenshaw is the one doing it.
Well, you know what? What's interesting about what you're saying, I mean, the American people are also probably noticing that when Republicans were in power, they were fine with hostage taking. And when Democrats were arguing for clean CRs, now it's the exact opposite. So I'm not sure you can throw Democrats' words in their faces without also throwing Republicans' own actions in their faces in this particular moment.
So many things right now. Number one, Mike Johnson is protecting the Epstein files. They do not want to swear in that Congresswoman because they do not want this to leak because there are fissures all over the MAGA movement. Secondly, Trump and his administration of sycophants have leaked everywhere. They want it to stay shut down. He's shutting down all of these different agencies. He is firing federal workers left and right. This is the dream of Project 2025. There are nefarious intentions under this. Every Republican and Democrat should be in D.C. right now working. Most of all, Moses Mike Johnson, who is this big Christian. If he's a big Christian, he should be teeing up, fighting for health care, fighting for the marginalized, fighting for the poor. But instead, he weaponizes his faith to lure voters in and then dicks them over every chance he can get.
Can we talk
And
about
that's
fighting
what
for
people
healthcare
are
real
so
quick?
sick of.
Can we say a few things about Republicans fighting for healthcare real quick? I have some things that we should talk about.
Got a binder
how
full
about
of
the Lower Costs,
something
More Transparency Act? So we passed it out of the House, bipartisan bill passed in 2023. Over 300 votes for that out of the House. Bernie Sanders was the chairman of the Health Committee in the Senate. When the Democrats held the Senate. He refused to bring it to the floor. That was a bipartisan bill. The first step to lowering any healthcare costs, if you guys want to really get deep on healthcare costs, you have to have price transparency. You have to know how much things cost. That bill was a massive win that came out of my committee. We passed it out of the House in a bipartisan fashion. Why didn't anyone ask Bernie Sanders that question? Why would he refuse? Why would he refuse to bring that to the committee? I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm not done here.
But hold on,
I got another
hold on
thing.
1 second. Let me just say, because I want to keep the conversation.
But I want to list of things the GOP
I understand that you do. But listen, I want to speak to that because I do think we heard today from AOC. She was also talking about how she was working with Republicans on reforming PBMs, these sort of middlemen in healthcare.
Working on anything. We've had that bill out there forever. I support it. We all support it. It is bipartisan.
She said it was bipartisan, and she said it wasn't brought or it was killed. She said by Elon Musk and by Donald Trump siding with Elon Musk. So there's a whole slew of healthcare things that are going nowhere because both parties
I
won't
want to
come
say
to
something.
the
That was
table on it.
PBM reform. We're all supportive of that too. We're going to get that through. Why did Bernie Sanders stop this one though? Because this was
So why don't you go
transparency
back
in
to
hospitals.
Washington and
This
make
was
that
back
part
in
of the
insurance.
negotiation?
Why don't you
This
guys
was
sit
part.
down
This
with
was part of
Bernie
all
and
of
talk
it.
it out?
I guess this is an opportunity, though,
We aren't
Congressman.
going to flame
$35 insulin caps. That came from Donald Trump.
Hold on, whoa,
Cost sharing
hold on.
reduction, which
Hold
would have
on.
actually decreased the
Congressman,
debt while also
I don't think you can
while
talk
also
about
decreasing.
I don't think you can talk about reducing
Just
insulin
keep
prices
interrupting me
without.
because you don't want to hear what Republicans have done to decrease
Hold on.
healthcare costs.
I'm sorry. I'm interrupting
we
you
all know y'all want
because
for
you want to
profit.
read a list on a television show. That's a conversation show.
All right,
That is why I'm interrupting
but I'm giving you a list.
I'm sorry. But I want to ask you a question, okay? The question is, why not take all of these issues and sit down and address them, address the subsidies, address the list of things you've got there.
All of our Republican
and also,
leadership
by
has
the
said
way,
we will absolutely do
but
that.
Congressman,
But
now
open
you're
up the
now you're
government
interrupting
and
me. Now you're interrupting
stop
me.
screwing over federal workers.
November is right around the corner. We keep hearing that this doesn't really go into effect until then. November is right around the corner. Isn't now, though, the time to address this issue and maybe to take some of those things that you're talking about, put it in a package, and work on it together? I mean, I'm asking you because you're actually in a position to do something about it.
I'm just impressed by your all's ability to twist these things around.
Nobody is twisting.
Nobody is twisting.
We are literally saying, ask Bernie Sanders the question.
Healthcare.
Why do people like Dan Crenshaw always come across as so smug? It feels like every MAGA figure carries that same attitude, constantly smirking, cracking jokes, and being sarcastic even when asked serious questions. When Abby Phillip directly asks Dan Crenshaw something, and Ana Navarro or others simply urge him to go back to Washington and negotiate, he still pivots to, but what about the Democrats? What about AOC? What about Bernie Sanders? It's always deflection. They claim they're working on healthcare, yet they blame others for not helping while completely ignoring the real issue. Crenshaw keeps accusing Democrats of gaslighting, but the truth is, everything MAGA does is projection. They're the real gaslighters. They don't actually want to fix healthcare. They want ACA subsidies gone because their wealthy donors don't want to pay a little more in taxes to help ordinary people afford coverage. They don't care if federal workers lose their jobs or if families can't afford insurance. Crenshaw pretends he cares, but it's all an act. Jennifer Welch made a great point when she called Mike Johnson Moses Mike Johnson, pointing out how he presents himself as a devout Christian while ignoring the poor and the sick, just like the rest of MAGA, and sadly, much of the Democratic Party too. Meanwhile, people like Dan Crenshaw keep showing up on Abby Phillip's show, spinning the same narrative, blaming Democrats for the shutdown, and insisting they just want to get back to work and negotiate. But when the government reopens, if the subsidies aren't reinstated, they'll expire, leaving countless Americans unable to afford health insurance. People are already struggling, and this will make things worse, all because of politicians like Crenshaw and his MAGA allies who keep misleading viewers night after night. What do you think? Do you agree with Abby Phillip, Ana Navarro, and the more moderate voices on the panel, or do you side with Dan Crenshaw and MAGA blaming Democrats? I'm Truth Scope, and I'll see you in the next one.